Good morning, my name is Ray. Welcome to my garden. It's June 2021 and I want to show you what I have growing. What you're looking at here is my Princess grapevine. I planted this exactly June of 2017 and it's such a wonderful thing to be stepping out of the house into the backyard and to be greeted by it. A bit of background info, my backyard is 2,000 square feet. Half of that is taken up by the garden in which I grow things primarily in raised beds. The total lot size where the house sits on is about 7,000 square feet. The collard greens that you're looking at here is still growing because I want to keep them going as long as possible until I can collect the seeds later in the fall. But in the meantime, I have to make sure that I keep the aphids infestation down to minimal. So every morning I spray the aphids with a cooking oil and dish soap mixture, which is also known as white oil. The mixture works by coating soft body insects, effectively suffocating them, and the process is really rapid, so I could be spraying in the morning and they'll be dead by the afternoon. I also use white oil to spray leaf hoppers on the grape leaves, and that is just as effective. Here's my 2 celery that I'm saving for seeds, and I'm staking using a string to the trellis above. And next to them you can see the curly kale, which again I'll try to keep them going as long as possible so I could save the seeds. Other things that are growing here are the beets. I also have sweet chard, some jalapeno peppers, green onions, different varieties of eggplants, which has survived the freeze from the previous season. And between the raised bed growing in 3.5 gallon containers are avocados that I've grown from seeds. The beets don't look happy at all, and that's due to the heat. They will wilt during the day, and later in the evening they'll just liven up, especially when I hand water them. So next to the first raised bed that you just saw is another one. They kind of mirrored each other, and what I have growing here are Fresno chilies, kales and beets, and I have some determinate tomatoes and bok choy, which coming to the end of its life, and I'm just about to collect the seeds. So this is my 4 years old Moringa tree. It's about 20 feet tall, so effectively taller than a house. Next to the Moringa we have a 4x6 raised bed, and growing in it is Caribbean peppers. I also have the purple wisteria, as well as some Thai eggplants. So here's another look at the bok choy that I'm saving for seeds. So back to the 4x6 raised bed, I'm pruning my Thai eggplants. It is one of the first things I planted when I first built this raised bed. So effectively this is about 4 years old. And I think the reason it's able to survive so long over the winter months particularly is because this raised bed is right next to the house. So it's getting some heat from the house. Some years when it's really cold, the plant will die back to the ground, then new shoots will come out in spring. I have since cloned her, so her offsprings are growing in other places throughout the garden. In the southwest corner of the garden is my tiger fig. It's 4 years old. There's lots of fruits on it, but they're ripe way later in the season compared to my other fig tree, which was planted at the same time. You're looking at my first ever raised bed that I built. This is a 4x6. I find that the Prime-Ark Blackberry doesn't like full sun here, so I'm growing it underneath the tiger fig, and it seems to be doing pretty well. Every day it provides us with a handful of blackberries. Last year I added a trellis that go across the top so I could tie my tomatoes on it. I also added a door just to keep my cats out. I have cherry tomatoes growing in this raised bed, which I will stake to the trellis on the sides. And on the left side I am also growing honeydew melon. I'm also growing spaghetti squash on the right hand side, and any tomatoes and eggplant that are growing in the middle, I will stake them to the top of the trellis. I'm a big fan of growing things up vertically. You will see that throughout my garden. So to my left, along the wall, is the second and the third raised bed that I've added to the garden way back in 2016. And 2 years later, I decided that I would build a trellis to surround them. The initial idea was that these two raised beds I was going to use to grow tomatoes and have nettings to keep the birds out, but I ended up just growing whatever. So again, I have beets growing as well as tomatoes and herbs. Down to my left here, as we walk towards the greenhouse, is my determinate tomatoes. I'm kind of excited because it's the first time I'm growing determinate variety of tomatoes. I never had much luck growing larger tomatoes than the usual cherry tomatoes. As we look up is my flame seedless grape. I planted it the same year I planted the princess grape, but it's nowhere near the same size as the princess. But we've been getting consistent yield for the past couple of years, and that's about 20 to 30 bunches of grapes. As I turn around and walk into the raised bed 2 and 3 enclosure, to my right are Russian cherry tomatoes and 4 Tumbling Tom's tomato, and behind them are the jalapeños, peppers. And my raised bed 3, I'm growing again more tomatoes, but what's growing in here are my volunteer tomatoes, super sweet 100 I believe, which is a cherry tomato which keep coming back year after year. My princess grape cuttings in the green containers. You saw a glimpse of my greenhouse, which I removed the plastic siding to improve airflow. Continue down this path, and on the left is my other fig tree. I call it the Home Depot because that's where I bought it from, and it wasn't even labeled which variety it is. Though it's really productive and it ripe earlier in the season compared to other figs I have growing. Growing next to it is 2 avocado trees, and underneath the fig trees I have sharp blueberries, which is a lone survivor out of 4 varieties that I've grown. I have eggplants growing in smaller containers that survive the freeze. from the previous season. And what you can see I'm pruning here is bitter cucumber. I've also got 3 vines of yard-long bean, which I never ever been able to grow. But this year I'm getting 1 bean, so my luck is changing. I also have some Persian cucumber. Down to my left here is a raised bed I built for Karina, my daughter, and she's growing peas in it. This is my 10 by 10 by 6 feet tall ceiling greenhouse. I have some shelves for storage, and the middle shelf there is for my seeds germination. As we're coming out of the greenhouse, just outside the door to my right is a pomegranate tree and a moringa tree. Underneath that I have some more grape cuttings. The variety of this pomegranate is Pafienka. It's definitely one of the better tasting pomegranates I've ever tasted. Another 4 years old moringa growing as a shrub. It dies back every winter to the ground, and each spring there's new shoots come off of it. Regardless, it's still 15 feet tall. Here I'm staking yellow pear tomatoes, which are growing in ground. I have 11 vines, and next to them, a bit further out into the path, are 9 Tumbling Tom's tomatoes. Growing the opposite side of the path up along the wall are my raspberry bushes. One is thorn and the other is thornless. I think the thornless one is called boysenberry. I have some eggplants growing in this area, newly transplanted grape cutting. I've also got a lemon tree that I'm training up this upright, which is growing in a 5-gallon container. In the back there is a kumquat tree and Mexicola avocado tree we're looking at here. And this season's finger fruit, eggplants, fig cuttings back there, and Olympic fig, which I moved from the opposite side of the garden to this location, and it seemed to be happier than before. I have some more eggplants back there. I have a cucumber vine. I got some wing beans growing. So we're panning back to the spot where we started off our tour underneath the moringa tree. Thank you for watching.